2 class. This is our Monday of our 5th week, April 27, and we're on the last 4 sections of homework for the whole class. This week we'll finish up the homework for the whole class. So here we are, 14.3, which is on ellipses, which in your book is on page 627. Now, for ellipses, we have x squared over a squared, and that should be a plus. Sorry, y squared over b squared. And when x squared has the bigger, whatever has the bigger number under it is the a squared, and that's the major axis, the one that's longer. So when y is the major axis, it's x squared over b squared plus, that's again should be a plus, y squared over a squared, because the bigger number a squared is always under the longer axis. It isn't under the x or the y necessarily, it's under whichever one is longer, as we'll see. So now the terminologies that we have using our letters A, B, C is the horizontal vertices for the horizontal being the major axis x is plus or minus a comma 0. For vertical, it's 0 comma plus or minus a. That's going up and down a. The covertices, not the shorter length axis, is called 0 plus or minus b for horizontal, but plus or minus b 0 for the vertical major axis. Now the focus point is always inside the ellipse, as we see in the picture here, and that's plus or minus c comma 0 for the horizontal, but 0 plus or minus c for the vertical. Now notice for the horizontal, a and c are both on the x-axis, and for the vertical, a and c are both on the y-axis. So now look at our picture of our parabola, and we have our major axis. Here's really how they get the a. See the ABC right triangles on both sides? Well, the C is the focus point on either side of the origin, and this is for the horizontal. So C is on the x-axis, and A, the ends, are on the x-axis. So we see point P, A0, and on the other end, S minus A comma 0. On the top, the covertice is Q 0 comma B, and on the very bottom would be 0 comma negative b. Now the F1 is negative C0 on the x-axis, the F2 is C0 on the x-axis, and you can see that the the minor axis B and the distance from the origin to C are the two legs of the right triangle, where A is the hypotenuse, and that hypotenuse, if you took it from the origin and laid it out straight on the x-axis, would go out to point P. So that's the connection to it. And here, because we have b squared plus c squared equals a squared, we're often asked to find the focus points, which we'd have to subtract b squareds from both sides on top and get c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, so that's for the horizontal major axis. Now we'll do an example using that. So for example 1, we start out with 9x squared minus 16y squared equals 144. Okay, and we always have to have it equal to 1, and that should be a plus. I apologize, all those minuses should be plus. And so now on the calculator, see, we needed 144 over 144 to equal 1. And so we have 9 over 144, math enter, will be 1 over 16. And 16 over 144 will be 1/9. So then the original equation will simplify to x squared over 16. So that means the x is the longest axis, minus y squared over 9 equals 1. So that says that a squared is 16, so a is plus or minus 4 to the left or right of the origin. You can see the vertex out at 4, 0. On the other side, there's one at negative 4, 0. And going straight up from the origin, b squared is 9, so b equals 3. So straight up from the origin, the minor axis is 0, 3. Now getting the focus points, which are always less than the vertex, is c squared equals a squared minus b squared, or 16 minus 9, or 7. So c is equal to square root of 7 minus square root of 7. And so c is negative square root of 7, 0 for f2 on the left side, and f1 is square root of 7, 0 on the right side. And remember, if we brought down 4, we would have our right triangle, okay? So 4 square root of 7, 3, and square root of 7. So 3 squared is 9, square root of 7 squared is 7, 9 plus 7 is 16. So our hypotenuse with the 3 and the square root of 7 would be 4, showing that the 4 for the vertex is the same as the right triangle, hypotenuse, okay? Now we look at a vertical major axis. So example 2, write the equation of the ellipse passing through plus or minus 2, 0, and with foci 0 plus or minus 5. So the foci on 0 plus or minus 5 says it's going to be longest on the vertical axis, and also the vertices, the endpoints, will be on the vertical axis. So y is the major axis because vertices 0 plus or minus a are on the same axis as c, 0 plus or minus 5. So now c is equal to 5, b is equal to 2, and b squared plus a squared, b squared plus c squared, as we saw before, equals a squared, the hypotenuse. And so 2 squared plus 5 squared equals a squared, or 4 plus 25 equals 29. So a is equal to plus or minus square root of 29. Now notice at the top and bottom, I have for my vertices 0, square root of 29, which is bigger than 5, and 0 minus negative square root of 29. And the foci are, rhymes with loci, are 0, 5, and 0, negative 5. And the minor axis endpoints are negative 2, 0, and 2, 0, which was told to us in the beginning. Now, not every ellipse or any conic section is centered at 0, 0, so we have to take into account the fact that they're centered at hk, like we did with the circle, like we did with the parabola. So here we go for a horizontal major axis, x minus h squared over a squared, because a is bigger, plus y minus, now we have the plus like we're supposed to be, it's always plus between the two, y minus k squared over b squared equals 1 for the horizontal major axis, and x minus h squared over b squared plus y minus k squared over a squared, so a will be bigger here than b, and that will make it a vertical major axis. Now to write the equation of the ellipse with vertices 3, 4, and 3, negative 6, so that means it's going back and forth on the y, and a minor axis 8 units long. Now when it says it's got a minor axis 8 units long, it means it goes, in this case, from the origin 4 to the right, and then from the origin 4 to the left. So each part from the origin is only 4, that's why we cut that in half for our b. So the center is 3, halfway in between 4 and 6, or 4 minus 6 over 2, which gives us a center of 3, negative 1. But a is 4 minus negative 6 over 2, or 4 plus 6 over 2 is 10 over 2, or 5. So that gives us our a, and a squared, of course, would be 25. B squared, of course, would be 16. So here we have x minus 3 squared over 4 squared plus y minus negative 1, or plus 1 squared over 5 squared equals 1. Final form, x minus 3 squared over 16 plus y plus 1 squared over 25. The bigger axis y equals 1. And here's our homework. It starts on page 631. Now we're told that a equals 3, which makes the x-axis the major axis, and b equals 1, which makes y the minor. So x squared over 3 squared is x squared over 9, plus y squared over 1 is just plus y squared equals 1, and that's clearly on the horizontal x-axis. Now for this one, we have a equals 5 for y and b equals 4 for x. So y is the major axis, and that makes it x squared over 4 squared, because that's b squared, plus y squared over 5 squared equals y squared over 25. So x squared over 16 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. And now looking at, we want to graph this, we can see that from the center, up and down 5 are the major axis vertices, 0, 5, and 0, negative 5. And left and right are the minor axis vertices on the x-axis, negative 4, 0, and 4, 0. And we do want you to graph that. There's only 2 more to graph. Now, 6 is x squared, a is 2, which is the y, so vertical major axis, b is 1 for x, so x squared over 1 squared plus y squared over 2 squared equals 1, or x squared plus y squared over 4 equals 1. Now we go up and down 2 from the origin, so our vertices are 0, 2 and 0, negative 2. Our co-vertices are negative 1, 0 and 1, 0 from the origin, and it's on the vertical axis. That's all we need to draw. Okay, now on 8, we start with 64x squared plus 9y squared equals 576, and we always divide by what's in the right of the equal, so it will be 1. So we divide everything by 576. So 64 divided by 576, and we'll want to do that on the calculator. Math enter, is 1 over 9, and 9 over 576 is 1 over 64 using the math enter. So this now simplifies to x squared over 9 plus y squared over 64 equals 1, and that gives us a of 8 for y and a b of 3 for x. So this one is from the origin, up or down 8. So the vertices are 0, 8, 0, negative 8, and the co-vertices are plus or minus 3 from the origin, or negative 3, 0 to 3, 0. And that's the last ones we have to graph. So 10 is x squared over 3 plus y squared over 15, y is the major axis, equals 1. A squared equals 15, b squared equals 3. Now we'll look at finding the focus points of the foci. C squared equals a squared minus b squared, or 15 minus 3, or 12, and c equals the square root of 12. And factoring that out with the perfect square factor, c equals square root of 4 times the square root of 3, or plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. And since it's on the y-axis, that we have the foci points are 0 plus or minus 2 square roots of 3. And that's all they wanted for that one. Now 12, we have x squared over 8 plus 2y squared over 8 equals 1. That simplifies to x squared over 8 plus y squared over 4 equals 1. X is the major axis. A squared equals 8, b squared equals 4, c squared equals a squared minus b squared, 8 minus 4 equals 4, c squared equals 4, c equals 2, and foci then are plus or minus 2, 0. Now for 14, they tell us that the vertex is 0, 8, making y the vertical major axis, and the co-vertex is negative 7, 0. So we have x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared equals 1, or x squared over 7 squared, the b squared, plus y squared over 8 squared, the a squared, comes out to x squared over 49 plus y squared over 64 equals 1. Now finishing up on 16, we have our co-vertex at 0, 5, which is the b, and the focus at 12, 0, which is the C. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared. And so a squared is 5 squared plus 12 squared, which is our familiar 169. 25 plus 144 is 169. A squared is 169. A is the square root of 169, or 13, giving us our 5, 12, 13. So we have x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. So we have x squared over 169, that's a squared, and y squared over b squared is 25, equals 1. For 18, we have a major axis of length 18, which will make a half of that because it will go 9 to the left and right of the origin, and a minor axis of length 2, so that will be up and down 2 over 1, or 1 for b. So x squared over 9 squared plus y squared over 1 squared equals x squared over 81 plus y squared equals 1. Now finally we have a non-zero zero center. So we have a center of negative 2, 1. We have a b equals 2 for x and an a equals 4 for y. So for the center on top, x minus the negative 2 squared over b squared, 2 squared, plus y minus 1 squared over 4 squared comes out to x plus 2 squared over 4 plus y minus 1 squared over 16 equals 1. Now 22 starts out as x minus 2 squared over 16 plus y plus 1 squared over 7 equals 1. So we can see clearly enough that the center is 2, negative 1, and c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared, or 16 minus 7, or 9, and fortunately c squared equals 9, c equals 3. So now we have to look back to the center, an x value of 2, but the focus is on the x-axis, so we have to say 2 plus or minus 3 with the steady y of negative 1. So it's going left or right 3 from 2, negative 1, which when we add gives us 5, negative 1, and when we subtract, 2 minus 3 gives us negative 1, 1. So the vertices are 5, negative 1, and negative 1, 1. Now on 20, we start with 16 x minus 5 squared plus 20 y minus 1 squared equals 80. And like always, we divide everything by 80 to make it come out to equal 1. So we end up with x minus 5 squared over 5 plus y minus 1 squared over 4 equals 1. Showing us, and we already knew, that we had a center of 5, 1. Now c squared is a squared minus b squared, or just 5 minus 4, or c squared equals 1 and c equals 1. Now the center again is at 5, 1, so the focus just shifts left or right 1, 5 plus or minus 1, comma 1, and that gives us vertices of 6, 1, comma 4, 1. Now our last problem is x minus 1 squared over 5 plus y minus 4 squared over 1 equals 1, a center of 1, 4. C squared equals a squared minus b squared, or 5 minus 1 is 4. C equals 2, and the center is 1, 4, so we have to go left or right 2 on 1. So the foci is 1 plus or minus 2, comma 4, or 3, comma 4, and negative 1, comma 4. And if you look at my little picture here, which is just easy enough to sketch, 4 to the right, 4 up, I have my vertex at 1, 4, and I go up 1 and down 1 from there, because that's the co-vertices, or up and down 1. And then I go out plus or minus 4, no, plus or minus 2, because it's, where's my equation? Plus or minus square root of 5 from the center, but we know that the focus points there shown are 3, 4 to the right, and -1, 4 to the left. And the A numbers, the vertices, would be 1 plus or minus the square root of 5, 4. So that would be what the vertices are on the x-axis. And this finishes our lesson for Monday. God bless you and keep up the great work. Keep working on keeping all your homework caught up.